Ahoy YouTube! It's Professor Mimi from Card Fight Crash Course here with a bit of a double feature today. I'm bringing you one of my favorite decks, Mythiarqs. And since Mythiarqs are kind of cheap, I've got a nice little budget version that you can put together for like less than 20 bucks. And then an upgrade with the upgrade cards cost $20 per copy. So you could pick up like 5 whole copies of the budget version for less than the full one, which is neat. So I think it's a really cute deck for new players. I actually have this one, the budget one, on hand, so that if new players show up at the card shop, I can be like, here you go, have this deck. It's super cute. It's really fun. I put a lot of love into it, so it functions pretty well. It's going to be a bit of a long one today since we have almost 2 whole decks to get through. But they're really similar, so it won't take too much time to get through both of them. Since they are very similar in their card pool, there's not very many differences between the two of them, except the difference is like $80, which is not nothing. It can be a lot these days. But hopefully, if you want to have fun on a budget with some cute little guys, Mythiarq can be the deck for you. It's one of my favorite decks, and I'm trying to make videos more regularly just to get out there. So I figured if I'm going to start doing things more regularly, this would be a good way to get to know me and the kind of decks I like to play. I like decks like this. Oh, look at all these cute little guys. They're just little guys. And they all work together with the power of friendship. Each Mythiarq by themselves is relatively weak. And some of them, most of them, if they're by themselves, don't do anything. They say if you have 3 or more Mythiarqs, then you do the thing. So each one isn't very strong, but Larusul can bring them all together, and with the power of friendship, then all their powers combined, they can do a big punch blast with Mr. Porcuhile as our big finisher. And with our help of Mythiarq Guardian Delphine, we can protect everybody. And where's Porcuhile? Porcuhile. So our winning image is to have all of our cute little friends bring out Mythiarq Guardian, Delphine, and Porcuhile, and then we can use our Mythiarq Guardian Porcuhile Blast, and they'll get absolutely blasted. That's the hope anyway. That's the hope. So, let's start with our ride line here. Since, as I said, most of the deck doesn't work unless you have enough Mythiarqs, but the ride line helps with that. Mythiarq Pegalomekko is our starter. You gotta use Pegalomekko because he's so cute, and otherwise your whole theme is gonna be off. Your grade 1 is Mythiarq Illandrina, and he has 2 skills. I'm sorry about the lighting. The daylight savings time has made it get so dark so fast. He has 2 skills. He has Pseudo Forerunner, so when he's rode upon by a grade 2 card with Mythiarq, he moves to rear guard, and then back row. Your other Mythiarq was placed this turn by a card's ability, and your Vanguard's grade 3 or greater, the front row rear guards in the same column as it get +5. It's really easy to do, because Larusul is going to call something by card ability. The grade 2 spoilers also has that same ability to move to the side, so you'll have abilities placed by that. And we have other Mythiarqs that'll be able to trigger that, so he'll basically always be giving the 5k to the unit in front of him once you're at grade 3. He's really neat because we have the ability to restand our rear guard, so you can kind of double dip on that, and you get +5 over 2 attacks, so it's 10k total, which is nothing to sneeze at. Next, we have Mythiarq Laruth Manta, who, similar to Illandrina, has that little Forerunner skill. When it's rode upon by a grade 3 with Mythiarq in its card name, call it to rear guard, and then when it's placed on rear guard, which includes by this skill, the first one, then you get, if you have 3 or more units with Mythiarq in their card name, which you will, since you have Illandrina, assuming it hasn't been retired or anything, himself, and your Vanguard Mythiarq Larusul, that's 3. So you may soul charge 1, then, even if you didn't, you get to choose one of your opponent's rear guards, and that unit cannot intercept until end of turn, which doesn't, again, it's kind of weak, but with our powers combined, that can come up and be very helpful. And our big bad, well, bad as in super cute, Mythiarq Larusul, the star of the show. When Mythiarq Larusul is placed on Vanguard Circle, you get to look at the top 7 cards of your deck. You choose up to 1 grade 3 or less unit card from among it, from among them, call it to rearguard, and shuffle. If you have 5 or more cards on your board, 5 or more units, that includes the Rusul, so you need at least 4 rearguards. Your opponent chooses a card from their hand, and then they discard it. And then when Mythiarq the Rusul attacks, you counter +1, choose one of your rearguards with Mythiarq and its card name, you return it to your hand. You choose a Mythiarq with a different card name from your hand, and you call it to rearguard circle. The Mythiarq Rusul is a very strong card, but she doesn't do anything unless she doesn't have any friends. So you have to make sure you have your friends around, which can be kind of tricky early on in the game, since we have only these 2 friends, and Mythiarq Rusul calls 1. But we have lots of tricks up our sleeve to make sure that we can have enough friends to make sure that procs. Mythiarq Rusul is a very strong card. It's even played in premium, so that's how you know it has a little bit of chops. But then again, it's played in that Mega Colony deck. They're always fiending for literally any decent grade 3 to play. But actually, Mythiarq Rusul and 3 of our other cards actually form a powerful premium deck. So you know that there's a little bit of something going on here. It's not all just weak little friends. Some of them have very strong skills. Speaking of one of those cards played in premium, let's lead with Mythiarq Rizumi. Mythiarq Rizumi, aside from being super cute, has 2 skills. The first one looks like it's 2 skills, but it's 1 very long auto skill. So in your drop zone, when your grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Mythiarq and its card name is placed, during your ride phase, you get to perform one of the following. If you have no units with this card name, you may call it to rearguard. And then if you do have one with the same card name, you Soul Blast 1, you bottom deck him, and then you draw. And then back row center specifically, during your turn, if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3, all of your front readings with Mythiarq get +5. This is extra good in premium because it works when you ride and when you stride, which is neat. In standard though, keep in mind that the if conditions on cards are checked when you resolve your skills. So if you have a bunch of these in your drop zone and you place Mythiarq Rusul, they both go on standby, and then when you resolve this one to come out, the second one then sees that you have one, so it doesn't uselessly replace itself. It'll let you Soul Blast 1 to draw a card, which lets us have a nice little resource engine, because we can soul charge a lot of cards. Not like a lot. We're not Dark Irregulars or anything, but we can soul charge quite a few of our friends. Rizumi is a whole playset because it's kind of like one of those cyclers where when you discard it to ride, you get to draw a card, except you don't get to draw it right away. But it's still really nice to have around. This one is not played in premium, but it's the newest of our friends, Mythiarq Mayachi. And we're playing a whole playset of this because it has an energy blast cost. It has a cute little continuous skill where if you have 3 or more rearguards with Mythiarq in their card names, it can't be chosen by your opponent's card effects. And this only works in the back row. So he's got, because they don't really want to spend their removal on Rizumi, and they don't want to spend it on, they can't hit this either, so it makes it really difficult to remove our friends. And then he has the auto, when your grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Mythiarq and its card name is placed during your ride phase, or your opponent discards a card from their hand by your card's ability during your ride phase, Energy Blast 3, put him into your soul, choose a unit card with Mythiarq and its different card name from this unit from among them, call it to rearguard, and it gets +5. It doesn't seem like much on its own, but it's the power of friendship. That +5, those +5s add up. He gives +5. He gives +5. He gives +5. With all of those, you can be a lot of power. +15 on one unit. You Persona Ride +25. Even one of your weaker friends can do quite a lot of damage. With our board needing to have enough Mythiarqs to get things done, having one that comes back, one that's difficult to remove. This one has his targets on its back, so he'll get blasted a lot of the time. And then if they clear your other units, then this is easy to clear off. But they don't really want to spend their removal on Rizumi, since it just comes back every turn for free. Because this deck is built around Persona Riding. We need to Persona Ride. Our numbers are not very impressive if we don't Persona Ride. So to help us Persona Ride, we have 1, just one Mythiarq habitat in this version. It's not the best. It's kind of just a one of fun of, so that if a new player gets the deck, they can be like, what's this card? This isn't a unit. No, this is an order card. So it's part teaching card and part useful. You get to look at the top 7 cards of your deck when you play this card. Choose one unit card from among them with a grade less than or equal to your Vanguard and call it to your rearguard and shuffle. And then in your deck, it sort of counts as a unit card. When you would search your deck and choose a unit card from your deck, you may choose this card if it was a unit card, and then when this card would be called to rearguard, you put it into your hand instead of the drop zone. So with Mythiarq Laruzul, you can, instead of calling a unit, you can take Mythiarq Habitat and get a bit of a reroll. That reroll can be kind of important because we want to, if we haven't seen a Mythiarq Laruzul, we can call a Mythiarq Laruzul, then use our on attack effect to pick it up and then put something else down so that we can swing through and break through their lines. Because the Persona Ride turn is very spooky. I also have an extra one of fun of each of the extra ride deck cards as backups. Ilondrina is even in the main deck in the full version, because then you can have what I call double duck formation, where when your back row is Rizumi and 2 Ilondrinas, then you get to buff each side lane by +10. Then your Persona Ride makes them +20, and then our cards that we put there tend to get +10 on their own effects, so they're getting +30, which is a lot. That's on top of their base numbers, so even a weak card can be quite devastating. And then Laruth Manta, again, because that intercept can actually be intercept denial can be surprisingly useful. I figured it would be okay for this little budget version to have an additional copy. This could be a flex slot if you have a Regals piece lying around that you want to put in, or there's one of the other two Mythiarchs that we didn't get around to playing in the deck. Spoilers. You could put that in here instead. I just think that he's neat, and it shows new players that you can have your cards in your ride deck and your main deck. So it's another bit one of those teaching moments. Moving on to the real grade 2s once we're past Laruth Manta. Actually, give me 1 second. I'm going to have a little bit of tea. I would cut these out, but I used to have a tough time releasing videos because I would spend way too long editing the videos and not enough time making the videos, so I would never actually publish anything. So our new strategy is to never edit anything. We do it all in one take every time. And that way I'm much more likely to actually make something. I don't know if you guys know Wolfie VGC. He's become a big YouTuber recently. He, not to sound like a hipster, but I watched him when he was really small. He would just get in front of his webcam every day, turn it on, and just start talking. His videos were really low production value, but just by keeping at it every day, he was able to become something big. So I'm going to follow in his footsteps, and I'm going to do my best to just keep on making stuff, and I hope you guys like it. I hope you like our double feature podcast today. I hope you like them as much as I like Mythiarq Mew Malilin. Mew Malilin has 2 skills. First, when they're placed on rearguard, if you have 3 or more Mythiarchs and their card names, you may have it get it definitely gets +5. Then you may Soul Blast 1 to choose one of your opponent's rearguards, and it can't stand during their stand phase. Then second is an act once per turn. If you have a grade 3 Vanguard with Mythiarq in its card name, you bind a rearguard with Mythiarq in its different card name, and then you call that same card back. So it lets you flicker or blink something, where we can have Mew Malilin and our Laruth Manta. So Laruth Manta comes out, and then Laruth Manta will stop one thing from intercepting. And then we can use Mew Malilin to stop it from standing. And then we can use Mew Malilin to bind and recall Laruth Manta, which will trigger Laruth Manta again. And we can turn off the other intercept. And when we attack with the Razul, we could call back a second Mew Malilin, and now that one can't stand either. So with their powers combined, with the power of friendship, we kind of retired 2 units. But they're not in the drop zone, which is not strictly better or worse than retiring. So that's something. Some grade 2s have like skills that let them come back out for free, so retiring them is kind of pointless. But if they're not retired, then they don't do that. So they have to like spend a little extra effort getting around that. It's not the greatest, but it's really cute and it's on theme. Next, only 3 copies of this next one. I shaved one to make room for Mythiarq habitat, since the habitat can be a little bit easier to resolve sometimes, since we have so many grade 2s in our deck that it can be difficult to get him to be on board in a good place. Mythiarq Meet a Chad has 2 skills. When he is placed on rearguard, if you have a Vanguard with Mythiarq in its card name, you get to look at the top 5 cards of your deck, choose up to 1 card with Mythiarq in their card name from among them, put it into your hand, and then if you did, you take a card from your hand and you put it into your soul. And then if you have a grade 3 Vanguard with Mythiarq in its card name, continuously this card gains 10,000 shield, which is really helpful. This is another one of those cards they play in premium. He's not a showstopper, but you be blocking. He attack, but he also protect. He helps us get through our deck to find all of our guys, because to find the one extra Illandrina in our deck, we want to churn through it quite a lot. And in fact, we churn through it so much, you actually will be surprised how often you find just this one copy without having to play a second one in order to get double duck formation. Next up, and our last grade 2 we're playing is Mythiarq Mary Lish. Not one of the premium all-stars, but she has one simple skill. When she is placed on rearguard, by the ability of your card with Mythiarq in its card name, if you have a Vanguard with Mythiarq in its card name, you can counterblast 1 and draw, and until the end of the turn, when your opponent would call cards from their hand to Guardian Circle to block this unit's attack, specifically this unit, they must call 2 at the same time. It's not too much considering she's only 10, so she can't even hit a Vanguard by herself, but remember, this is all about the power of friendship. With Laruth Manta turning off their intercepts, you can quite easily swing in for quite annoying blocks, or things that are quite annoying for them to block. You swing with this for like 10k on your opponent's grade 2, but they have nothing to intercept with, and they don't want to discard 2 cards, so it's a really easy way to sneak in a weak attack they just kind of have to take sometimes. This deck doesn't have much counterblast usage other than Mythiarq Larusul, but with Mary Lish and Mew Malulin, we are able to effectively use our counterblast when we have a lot of it. Because if we have too much counterblast usage, then it'll feel really lame, because we have to use Larusul, and it can be beneficial to block lots of swings early. But when we do have a lot of counterblast, we can use Mary Lish first to draw a card. Then we can use Mew Malulin to flicker the Mary Lish, and then when Mary Lish comes back, we can counterblast 2 and draw 2. And then Mythiarq Larusul, of course, will do something that turn, so that'll be 3 counterblasts in 1 turn, which you can't do that twice consistently. So that helps us get through our counterblast. And again, with how much card selection options we have, we will surprisingly find this relatively consistently. So I didn't feel the need to go up to 3 copies of it in this budget version. I have just 2 in the full version, and when I was looking for cards to help fill out slots, I was like, oh, I could put another Mary Lish, but 2 of it always works out just fine. You see it just enough. You don't usually see it too much. You don't see it not enough. 2 is just right. Now for the big showstoppers. The rest of our cards here are going to be our big payoffs, because most of these are just little friends. Well, we have our 3 Persona rides, of course. 3 copies of Larusul, because we need to Persona ride, because Mythiarq Larusul, when you place it, it replaces itself, which isn't a plus, but you get 1 card from Persona riding. You get a second card off the top of your deck when you call something, and your opponent discards a card, and minuses for your opponent is a plus for you. So it's kind of a soft core +3. I mean, looting, when you get rid of, that's rummaging. When you get rid of a card and then drawing a card isn't a plus per se, but it gets rid of a card with no shield and gets you potentially a card with shield, since we have very few cards in our deck that have no shield. We just have Larusul, Mythiarq Habitat, and then our last grade 3 card, one of our big showstoppers, Mythiarq Porcohile. Mythiarq Porcohile has 2 skills, but they set him up to he's big. In fact, he's so big that continuously, when you would count the number of cards on your board for the ability of your unit with Mythiarq in its card name, this card counts as 2. And rearguard, when this unit attacks, if you have 5 or more units with Mythiarq in their card names, this unit gets plus 10 until end of turn. Now keep in mind that this continuous skill doesn't say when you would count your units for your other Mythiarqs, so he counts as 2 for that one. So you only need to have 2 other units, because he'll be 2, your Vanguard will be 3, and then you could have a second full lane for 4 and 5, and he'll be big. He's super helpful for Mythiarq Lerusul, because many times your opponent will think they have you on, like, aha, I'll be safe from discarding this turn, because I took all that time to clear out your board. But bullying Mythiarqs is not okay, and they have to be punished for that crime. So we have to use, if you can call it off of Lerusul and get lucky, that's nice. But I wanted to have 3 copies of this, so we're much more likely to find one, and even if our opponent kills it. Because remember, Mythiarq triggers when our Vanguard is placed and when they discard. So we can save it until after they discard, until after we resolve Lerusul's skill to get whatever we're missing. Or if we're going to have a hard time resolving Lerusul's discard, we can use Mythiarq to call back a Porcohile from our drop zone, and then be much more likely to have the discard, because it'll be 1/2 off of Porcohile, 3, Rezumi makes 4, and then whatever you call can make 5. So since Rezumi pops out, and this has resist, as long as this can stay on our board and we have a Porcohile in our drop zone, it's really easy to secure the discard. A cute little tip before we move on with Porcohile is that an easy way you can get him into the drop zone without overextending too much is sometimes you'll have too many grade 2s and stuff on your board, because we have 11 right here, which is, plus our other friend, our last card, spoilers, is a grade 2. So we have 15 grade 2 cards, about a third of our deck. So it can be quite challenging to field all of them efficiently, but you can end up doing something really cute where, like, you have Mythiarq in the back row here and Porcohile in the front, and then if you add a second Porcohile to your hand, then when you attack with Lerusul, you can pick up Mythiarq, and then you can call Porcohile on top of the other Porcohile, so that you can make use out of the extra grade 2s you have, and get an attack twice out of a unit with the same name, because Mythiarq Lerusul makes it difficult for you to attack with Porcohile and then pick up and put down the Porcohile. You have to have a different name. So by using a unit with a different name, we get to save the 15k shield on our back row that could have been useless because we were just digging for pieces or something, and then we can get an extra attack off. And we're not even losing any shield since grade 3s don't have shield. And the last card in our deck is one of the biggest stars, a premium all-star Mythiarq Guardian Delphine, and one of my favorite cards in Standard. She has 2 skills. First is a once per turn. At the end of the battle, that's your grade 3 Vanguard with Mythiarq in its card name attacked. Well, I guess it doesn't have to be grade 3, but your opponent has to be grade 3, which it would be unlikely that she wouldn't be a grade 3. You Soul Blast 1, you stand her, and she gets plus 10. And then her second skill at the end of your turn, if you have 3 or more units with Mythiarq in their card name, you retire her, you choose up to 1 card with Mythiarq in its card name, it's not Delphine, and you add it to your hand. So Delphine does all the things you need a card to do. It makes our deck capable of doing 5 attacks. Since Mythiarq Lerusul will reset one side, Delphine resets our other side. If we're counterblast denied for whatever reason, Delphine still lets us get an extra attack. And in fact, if you have 2 Delphines, you can still do 5 attacks if your opponent tries to counterblast deny you, which is really cute. Delphine has a cute little mode where if you have to call her off of Lerusul, since Lerusul is an on-attack effect, and this is an end-of-battle effect, even if it won't restand, you resolve as much as possible with skills, so you can still Soul Blast 1 and gain plus 10 anyway, which is funny. And the second skill, to retire herself and get a card back, is very, very helpful, because we want to be Persona Riding every turn. So once we find one Persona Ride, it's pretty easy for us to loop them, where we'll have a Mythiarq Lerusul on our soul, even the ride get copy. So if we ride 1 from our main deck, We can Soul Blast our Ride deck copy with Delphine, and at the end of our turn, Delphine can retire herself, and then add Mythiarq Larusul back to our hand to Persona Ride again next turn. And then, with all of our friends that can get stuff back from the drop zone and can find more cards from our deck, we can find another Delphine to Soul Blast the Larusul and then add it back and do it again and again and again until we win. Or, unfortunately, maybe not sometimes. Can't win them all, right? But Delphine can also float into Mythiarq if you don't need anything else. Like if you already have extra Larusuls laying around, then you can just have Delphine float into a card with more shield and won't be able to be retired. But be careful, you don't want to use Delphine too much, because if you use Delphine too many times, and you might have none left, and you might not be able to get them out of the drop zone as much as you'd like. Which I guess reminds me of another cute thing about Mythiarq. This is Mythiarq, right? Yeah, the Mythiarq. If you place it off of Larusul, and you still have enough units to make your opponent discard, that will trigger this card, since it was on the board when your opponent discarded a card. So it will still see that, and its ability will go on standby, and you can put it right back into your soul, and then Delphine can form right back out. And then you have the Soul Blast cost for Delphine. That is all 30 of our non-lands. We have 4 perfect cards. Spoilers. This deck, since it's a budget deck, doesn't have a Regals piece. You can kind of think of this habitat as a pseudo Regals piece in this deck. It's not the greatest, but it is not nothing either. It works surprisingly consistently. It has quite a decently high ceiling. It has a nice early game that you can leverage into a good mid game. It has everything a new player would want, especially the fact that the cards are super duper cute. Excuse me while I get things into a nice little turn curve here, so you can see how nice our board is to build over time. This like kind of works turn 2, but I really want it turn 3. We don't need to have a big power spike turn 3, since riding Larusul already is a power spike. We have enough grade 1s that we can have a nice early game. These aren't really cards that you want to like calling early, but you want to, it fits in this point in the curve because you want to see it early so you can discard it to ride up. When I mulligan, I tend to look for Resumes, because the more we see early, they're most beneficial when you can discard them to ride up and then get them back out for free, and then extra copies you can Soul Blast 1 and draw, so they turn into those cyclers that cost a soul, just with a little bit of a delay. Since we need to have enough units on board, Mythiarq is nice to have around because it's not so important that your opponent feels like they need to kill it, but it becomes everything, so it can be, you can put it down and not worry about it too much, because if they remove it, well, they didn't remove the actual thing you want, and if they left it there, then it can become anything later. And the extra Ilandrina just helps to round things out. That's 5 cards that you can help to get 2 attacks turn 1 with. When we get to grade 2 turn, we have 8 cards if you feel like using Habitat to try and dig for one. Considering there are 12 grade 2s in the deck and you check the top 7, even though there's, 14 grade 2s actually, even though we don't necessarily want to be using their skills early, they still can. Mary Lish will trigger when placed by Mythiarq Habitat, so it's not the worst idea to just flyer Habitat early trying to play aggressive, since you can get a lot of benefit from most of your calls. I just really like to save it because I want to get Larusul as consistently as possible, but if you already have a Larusul, then don't worry about it, because then you might have too much shieldless cards in your hand if you already have a Larusul and your Habitat. It could be good to fire it, but if you haven't seen it yet, it could be good to save it. When we get up to our grade 3 cards, this doesn't really, it can work with Habitat, but that's not very consistent. There was a build I had of this originally before Mythiarq came out, where I had almost maxed out on Habitats and Mary Lishes, so that I could try and have like an early game, like, oh man, I'll play Habitat and then I'll get Mary Lish and it'll just be great. But it's not as consistent as I'd like it to be, and it just made everything feel a little wonky, so I moved away from that. But you could still try that if you think that sounds fun, if you just want to call something and it's like, all right, swing 2 from hand, and you can't intercept because you're playing maybe Summoner Lurith Mantis or something. But it's most consistently useful turn 3 because we can use Mary Lich to trigger, or Miu Malilin. Miu Malilin will flicker Mary Lich on turn 3, and Larusul can call it from our hand on turn 3, so it doesn't usually do anything till turn 3, and of course Borkohal being a grade 3 typically won't do anything till grade 3. Delphine is on the turn 4 part of our curve, because even though you can use it when your opponent's at grade 3, if we win the die roll, we'll want to go first with this deck, because this deck prefers to be attacking those lower numbers, and the sooner we Persona Ride, the better. So we'll be going first slightly more than 50% of the time, because every now and again you will play against a player who wants to go second. And it has a nice even curve here. There's not too much top end. We don't have any turn we're really weak, except for our turn 1 is kind of soft because these are kind of fake. But again, if we're going first, then we don't really need to use these on the first turn, and it just ends up increasing our turn 2 power spike to be quite large. And then turn 3, even though we don't have that many cards for turn 3, we still have our Ride deck card, and Mythiarq Larusul is very strong when she is placed, so that'll carry a lot of it. And then we hope that our Persona Ride and Delphine can get us into a favorable position, where even if we don't win that turn, we can develop quite a large lead and secure another Persona Ride, so that we can almost certainly win with our second Persona Ride, because we're able to effectively loop the copies. For the triggers in this deck, since this was kind of supposed to be for new players, it is rainbow triggers. Let me clean this up first, though, so that it doesn't get too cluttered. Rainbow triggers are a little silly for sure, but they do help new players get a feel for what they like and don't like with the trigger lineup, or with trigger lineups, because you can end up playing into fronts too much and they can be bad, and you're like, oh, I don't like these fronts, they blah 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 blah, or like, oh man, I love fronts, they this or that. So it gives players an opportunity to see what they do and don't like. In the full version, I am playing rainbow triggers. Not this exact. I'm actually playing 4 draws, but for some reason I couldn't find a 4th copy of this. But also I wanted to have one other trigger that like didn't quite match the theme, so that a new player would be like, "Oh, that's weird. Why is this one different?" And you have 5 crits. That's it. Can I play more crits? And that can be a teaching moment where, yes, you can actually, and you probably should play more crits, but you're going to have to choose which one do you want to get rid of, the draws or the fronts, and that can be a moment for them to learn. Bless Favor, of course, because he's great, and I have my little thing here where I have one perfect card that's different to represent what would have been Elementary Sanctitude, and it also gives them, the new player, an opportunity to see that there are other kinds of artworks, but almost certainly the correct artwork to play is Planar Prevent Dragon, because it kind of looks like a Mythiarq a little bit. It kind of looks like Lapras, but with like a bunch of flowers in their hair. If it would come into focus, that'd be cool. Yeah, they've got like this like big unicorny horn, all these like flowers. I don't know, it kind of looks like a Mythiarq. So it's my preferred perfect card with this deck. That about sums it up, though. Feel free to play 8 crit. I can't really tell you if you should get rid of the fronts or the draws. I never was able to quite get over it myself, and kept playing the draws and fronts because I find them quite useful. Oftentimes this deck needs to have like a critical mass of rear guards in order to get moving. So if you don't have the draws, you might not have enough cards, but sometimes you don't have enough shields, so I wanted the front still, and my opponents tend to be able to like block things, like thinking, oh man, I'll just be able to block whichever one has crit, since I don't present too much of a threat a lot of the time, so they'll be able to block really well around my crits, and then I check front, and then it's just annoying. Rainbow triggers are not as bad as you might initially think them to be. They are pretty useful because there are times where you want to check fronts, there's times you want to check draws, there's times you want to check crits. A lot of times you think that, oh man, fronts are just not as good as crits. I I actually got my back broken at locals literally this weekend because my opponent was playing an extra front in their deck and they just checked a front every turn. If those were crits, I would have been fine. If all of those checks were fronts, dead. All of those are crits? No, I'm still alive. But the way the front hits breakpoints on everything, it's just a little too much to handle sometimes. And it keeps in line with that power of friendship theme. Okay. Now for the full version of the deck, if you don't have any budget in mind, well, this deck certainly has no budget. We have the whole ride line comes in FR, and every Mythiarq except for 2 comes in FR. LaRusso has an FFR, but I really like this manga rare. It has like the trans colors on it, and the girl, you can't really see the girl in the background because the camera sucks, but the manga character has some cute artwork in the background. I don't think it'll come into focus, so I might just have to give up on this one. But yeah, you can like kind of see it a little bit. She's like smiling and has some cute expressions. She's a delightful little character. Again, I am playing a rainbow trigger lineup for this build, but it is not just because I like rainbow triggers, I'm not gonna lie. It is also because I wanted to have an entire playset of FR triggers. They look really clean. And spoilers, this deck has basically maximum FR. The only things in the deck that aren't FR are the perfect cards, because I wanted to still play Planar Prevent Dragon, because it's still like a Mythiarq. Elementaria Sanctitude does not come in frame rare. I'll get onto why in this deck I think it's important to be playing Elementaria. It's not important to play Elementaria, but I think there's cute tech to be playing it. And the Regalis piece I chose is Twin Cast. It's fine. You could play the Fire Regalis, trademark copyright, if you really like that card. I didn't feel like I was discarding. It doesn't have any discard synergies, and it kind of goes with the theme of like the Mythiarq, so like trying to protect each other. So Protection Twin Cast just kind of felt like it makes sense. Twin Cast and the Fire Regalis are both extremely powerful cards that come up in a lot of situations. I wouldn't fault you for playing either. I'm partial to Twin Cast myself. I think it kind of goes with the themes of the deck. And now for the important card. This could be an FFR, but since Delphine isn't an FFR, I want it to be a similar foiling to Delphine. This is Sea Rumble Brave Shooter. This card costs about as much as the budget deck itself. When it is placed or put from rearguard or to blah, 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 blah. When this card is put on Guardian from hand or discarded from your hand during your ride phase, to ride from the ride deck, you can Counterblast 1 or Energy Blast 3 and draw a card. And then the second skill does come up in this deck. When this unit is placed on rearguard, if you have Persona Road this turn, which we try to do a lot, Counterblast 1 or Energy Blast 3, choose a grade 2 or less normal unit with a different card name from your drop zone and place what? Why can I not read right now? Different card name from this unit and without Sentinel from your drop zone. Okay, right, so you can't recycle Sentinels. Or an order card from your drop zone and put it into your hand. Choose a card from your hand and discard it. So that's why we play Elementaria Sanctitude. It can be a bit tough to parse from the way that text box is written, but the without Sentinel is specifically for units, and the or and order card does not include that without Sentinel. So if it almost never happens, but sometimes you damage check your Elementaria, and then if you heal it, you can use this skill to get it back to your hand, which is cute. It's something. Or if you if you damage and heal Twin Cast, as long as your opponent hasn't if it has to be like specifically the last battle. This is a strange ruling nightmare. But if Twincast is in your drop zone and its effect triggers, even if you don't pay its cost, you have technically resolved a Regalis piece ability this fight. Even though you didn't pay the cost, you still had to resolve it off of standby. It's not a once per turn, so you can't choose to make it stop existing off of standby. The skill on standby must be resolved, even if you don't pay the cost. So once you add this card back to your hand and you try and play the Blitz order, the game is like, hey, you've already resolved a Regalis ability this fight, so then it resolves without effect, which is absolutely silly. But if you heal it for like the last damage, I mean, that comes up, and you don't have to add it. You can always just heal it and then use it to remove from drop zone. And enough rambling about the ruling interaction. This card is super clean for the deck because there are a lot of endgames where you wish you had just a little more cards to push through with. Like you like lost double duck formation, or you don't have a Mythiarq Guardian or something, and then Lurusul finds you this, you Energy Blast 3, you discard whatever useless like trigger you drew for turn, and then you just all in them. And then it makes it so that with Rezumi, we have 8 cards we want to be discarding to ride. When I had the Fire Regalis, sometimes I had 9 cards to discard to ride. Sometimes I felt like I had too many cards that were just asking to be discarded, and it made things a little bit tricky. But I mean, oh no, I have too many cyclers. What a pain. It's not a pain per se, but it bothers me a little bit sometimes. I'm still playing an entire playset of Mythiarq. Eventually, it really grew on me. I was playing like 2 at first, and then I was like, oh, I'll up to 3. Mythiarq is super nice. I ended up kind of building the strategy around Mythiarq because the interaction between Mythiarq and Porcuhile is so strong that I wanted to enable that as much as possible. And then lastly, of course, we have 1 Ilandrina to enable double duck formation. In order to cut some cards to make room for Sea Rumble Brave Shooter, we had to shift a few things, so I'm down to 2 Mew-Malillans. I still have 2 Mary Lishes, and I went down to only 2 Meta-Chads. So I had, if you conceptualize it, I cut the Mew-Malillan, or 2 Mew-Malillans, a Meta-Chad, and the Laruth Manta to make room for Sea Rumble Brave Shooter, and the Regalis piece over the Habitat. Habitat is fine. It's a decent card. Plenty of decks play it. It has like a little bit of extra synergy with this deck because Mythiarq Guardian can see it as a Mythiarq card. So she can float into Habitat, but there's almost no reason to actually want to do that, so it doesn't really matter very much. I'll just set them all down. But the Habitat helps you get to Lurusul, which is nice. There was actually a point in time I was playing Forbidal Surrogate in this slot, which doubles the price of the deck again. That card is quite expensive, since you can use Forbidal to call Lurusul and Porcuhile, and then you can use your Vanguard skill to pick up your Persona Ride and have it for next turn, so it's a way of searching it. But it just felt a little bleh. In order to make use of the Forbidal, the 2 spoilers, those 2 Mythiarqs I was talking about that we didn't play, I was at one point playing one of them instead of one of the Mary Lishes. I was playing 1 Mary Lish and 1 of our friend Mythiarq Alpiral. Mythiarq Alpiral is a grade 3, and when he is placed on rearguard, if you have 3 or more Mythiarqs in their cards with Mythiarq in their card names, then he gets +5. And then you may also additionally counterblast 1 to draw a card like Mary Lish. So the main difference between him and Mary Lish is that instead of having guard restrict, he's an 18k attacker, which I just decided that I would like the extra shield value of Mary Lish, the flexibility of it being a lower grade, and the extra power wasn't as important because Mythiarq Porcuhile is where we have all of our power stacked up on. And the last Mythiarq I didn't play is Mythiarq Urazazaster, the only one of them that can't come in Framer. He's a grade 1 in 8k, and when he boosts a unit with Mythiarq in its card name, if your damage zone has 3 or more face down cards and you did not countercharge this turn, you countercharge 1. This is pretty... It used to be really important back when we didn't have very many cards and the games would go on a little bit longer because standard used to be a bit more grindy. But nowadays, you can finish the game before you run out of counterblasts. But it would be cute. You could put them behind Mythiarq Laruzul, and then instead of having to wait until after you would use Laruzul and be at 3, finish the battle, and then have to use the counter charge, he fit back into your board really well in your center. Before we had Rizumi, where you would have 2. Even though you don't meet its resolution condition, if you have 3 more face down damage, it still triggers when you boost, and then you can use Laruzul. Like sometimes you'd have like 1 face down CB already, and you could use Laruzul to call something else that costed a counterblast 1, and then Urazazaster would still be on standby. And then now that you've counterblasted all that much, now he meets his resolution condition. So when you finally resolve it, it's like, oh, I have 3 face down counterblast. I'll just countercharge 1 real quick, and you would get a little extra mileage out of it and be able to use it sooner than you would be able to otherwise, and just eke out just a little bit of extra value. Not important for how the deck is performing nowadays, but if you really want to include that in the budget deck, because I don't know, you play it a little bit and you're like, I really wish I had some counter charge. Well, there you go. That's an option for you. Just maybe a little tea break. I'm doing a lot of talking. I hope you can tell by how shiny this is that I really care about this deck. I just want somebody... I don't like them very much, but somebody once said something that I really did like. They said, it's not about how good your deck is, it's about how good your deck looks. And I feel like this deck looks really good. Mythiarq Guardian Delphine doesn't come in a higher rarity, so with our Navy friends having full text boxes, they match each other. And having all of the Mythiarchs in frames is really nice. And then having all of the triggers be people with the Navy artworks. Because you could play 8 crit, but there isn't a crit that as another person in a Navy uniform. And I know some people don't like people in uniform, but it gives the theme, the deck a nice little theming, where it's the cute aminals in their protected zone, and then the Navy's protecting them. So at Mythiarq Guardian Delphine's flavor text is, it's, halt right there, this is the protected zone of the Mythiarchs, or something very similar to that. So it's really nice, like they're bothering the Mythiarchs and the Navy's here to backup. I don't know, something about it is just really cute to me. Because a lot of decks in Standard don't have too much consistent theming, or like you'll be playing like Bruce, and then you have like what looks like a Gear Chronicle card, or you're playing Pale Moon, and yeah, that's a Gear Chronicle card in your deck. Or I'm playing a Lyrical deck, and the girls are just all different. Some of them are dragons, some of them are mermaids, some of them are bunnies, and it's not consistent at all. But this has, at least, even if it's like 2 distinct art styles, it like flavor-wise all blends into one nice little package, which I think is really cute. I play this deck quite a lot, so I'm quite happy with the way the list is right now. I wouldn't recommend changing much other than the Regalis piece. The Regalis piece is quite flexible. Like Twin Cast is a card that does very many things. It blocks, but it blocks so flexibly. But so does the Fiery Gulls. Not blocking flexibly, but being flexible. It enables you to play much more fluidly sometimes. You can get that little extra draw here and there. Get a little extra this, a little extra that. But none of the other ones other than Forbidal really spoke to me. Like Caliburn to like draw extra cards is fine, I guess. But other than that, they didn't really engage with the deck too much. I saw at some event a long time ago, somebody had been telling me, oh, I really like to play Chalice in the deck because I need to Persona Ride. And I told them, this was before we had the Fiery Gulls and Twincast, and I had told them, well, why would you play Chalice to Persona Ride when you could play Forbidal to get cards to board and have card advantage, and then add a Persona Ride to your hand, which is better than just activating Persona Ride, because then you get the on-play skill. And their mind was absolutely blown. They're like, whoa, wow, that's why you're a judge. I was like, that's not why I'm a judge, but thank you. Thank you. Let's do a cute little redraw exercise here. Well, before we do the redraw exercise, I think it would be cute to show you the winning image. The way you want to develop the beautiful board is, of course, with double duck formation. If you don't have double duck, that's like fine. We've got Myachis. We have many Myachis to fill up the spot. So, because the Myachis can even get you the other Elandrina too. So we have something like this. A Porkuhile and a Mythiarq Guardian, where let me get sorry for disrupting the flow of things, but I wanted to just really send home how big everything is. Everything is quite large. It is time for you to be in charge. So we have our Persona Ride buff, and then of 10k, and then Rizumi buffs it up to being plus 15k. Both of the Elandrinas are supporting the unit in front of them by 5k. And Porkuhile is big, so he gets plus 10k. That is his skill. His skill is to be big. So you... let me just get one last little visual aid here. You attack with Guardian. You usually want to boost the first swing since she's going to get plus 10 when she restands. So that ends up being the same number twice. If your opponent is at a low damage, it can be advised to swing unboosted. So if they check a trigger, then you kind of negate it on the second swing since you still have your booster. But if they're at 5, then you want to swing boosted. If they're at like 2 or 3, then don't boost. You swing with your Guardian. Then you swing with Porkuhile. Again, whether or not you boost is a bit contextual, but sometimes you don't have another thing in hand, another Porkuhile in hand, and you might call a grade 2 from your hand. So it's nice to save the booster because the 8k doesn't hit a breakpoint on a grade 3, but if you have a grade 2 that you're boosting, you hit a breakpoint. You swing with your Vanguard. You kind of lost one. You pick up Porkuhile. You call something like Mythiarq or Mary Lish. Or, I said Mythiarq, but I put down Miyamulin as actual Mythiarq. So you get to put down something. You do your drive checks. Then you use Delphine to Soul Blast. Usually Persona Ride. To stand, she gets 10k. Then you swing for 10, 20, 30, 40,000 power, which is a lot. And you swing with this last one. 48. Yeah. Oh no, it lost 10k, so it's only 38. But it could be 43 with me Malolin. It could have the guard restrict. Or sometimes you can do a different trick where I told you about that Porco trick from before, where maybe we're really struggling to build double duck formation. So we have Mythiarq here. And we swing with Mythiarq Guardian for 30. We attack with Porco for 43, unboosted, because well, he doesn't have a booster, but still. 43. Our Vanguard attacks for 36. Counterblast. We pick up Mythiarq, and then we call Porco. Oh, I guess it didn't have that 5k. I lied about the number, but still, you get the point. You pick up the Mythiarq, you call a Porco, who still gets to be big. You Soul Blast, you stand. 38 and 48. It requires over 100,000 shield to hard guard. So if at low damage, you don't actually need that much shield. No guards here, a perfect guard there, and you can untap with like using 2 triggers. But at the end of the game, that's a lot of oomph. And since you can at the end of your turn retire Delphine to add LaRusul back, and the next turn you can LaRusul Persona Ride again, you can pretty consistently close out games once you get yourself into a position like this. And getting yourself into that position isn't always too tough. You have plenty of friends to help you get to where you want to go. Where is my... Oh, there she is. Cool. You have plenty of friends to help you get to where you need to go. So again, the deck's all about the power of friendship. Each of the Mythiarchs by themselves isn't too strong, but the 5k from Ilondrina, the 5k from Mizumi, the 5k that Mythiarq gives, because those numbers I gave you, you can put the 5k from Mythiarq, not Mythiarq, I'm sorry. Where did they go? I got my visual aids all messed up. Mythiarq. You want to use Mythiarq to bring back Guardian if you already have like a duck in hand or something, or you have an extra Mythiarq lying around for whatever reason. Like if you LaRusul call Mythiarq, Mythiarq will then give the +5 to Guardian, so that since Guardian can restand, it double dips on that +5. So instead of getting 5k value, like if you put it on the one that you're going to bounce, then on the second swing it's gone. But since it's going to restand, you get to double dip on that +5. And it's easily set up because your Guardians end up in the drop zone with their own skill, and they have a target on their back sometimes. So even if you leave it on the field, your opponent can be quite inclined to attack it lots of times and break through its defenses. Alright, let's shuffle up and we can do a quick little redraw exercise, and we can make this double feature not too much longer than an hour. Sorry about that, but I hope you at least get to enjoy putting a video like this on in the background. As I make more videos like this, hopefully we can start making some that are less than an hour sometimes, but I get the strange feeling that most of the videos are going to consistently be about this length. This is just how I want to talk about my cards, and if it doesn't get a lot of views on YouTube, that's fine. Whoever does show up and listens, I'm ever so grateful for you. So remember to like and subscribe so that you can be notified when new videos go live. I'm going to start trying to do this a little more often. You don't have to watch the video when it does go live, since it can be quite a commitment to sit down for an hour as I talk and talk and talk. But it can be nice to put on long videos in the background. So I tend to like backlog long videos, so don't feel bad if you see something like, oh, I'd love to have some ASMR to fall asleep to the sound of somebody. Oh, hold on. I was gonna try and make it sound nice for the mic. Like this shuffling ASMR. We're fiddling with the cards. Okay, so by combining pile shuffling, riffle shuffling, and again, I didn't come up with this name. It's what it's called in the rulebook, the Hindu shuffle, kind of like Yukimoto. You can quite quickly take a deck that was completely sorted and be confident that it is sufficiently random. Ugh. Okay. This hand, you can of course be tempted in many decks to put back your Persona rides, but this deck desperately needs to Persona ride, so you must cradle your Larusul like a sweet summer child. You must hold on to her. I think Twincast is nice for blocking, so I'd probably hold on to this. You always want to hold on to Rizumis, since they're like a cycler. You want to have one or two of those when you keep your opening hand. These days, it can be really nice to keep perfect cards in your hand because your opponent can do some crazy nonsense. And it's going to be nice to have this to fall back on. How many games have you lost? You're like, man, I drew half my deck, but I never found a perfect card. Well, if you keep one, then you will see one. You don't put it up to chance anymore. And now, last one, Refsy, I would consider putting this back to try and get a trigger to block with, but if we're going, but having an additional unit that I know I can attack with is fine. So honestly, this hand is very keepable. This is a very decent hand, and it goes into the keeps pile. Next up, we have 2 triggers, a cycler, Delphine, and a perfect card. I'd keep the cycler, of course, and like I was saying, you want to keep perfect cards. Since I'm putting back 3 triggers, and triggers are about 1 and 3, I would think that I would potentially get another trigger. I'd be a little scared that I might not get one, but let's see. Draw 1, 2, 3. See, I still have a trigger. So this hand is plenty fine. We've got a cycler to get ourselves going. We've got shield. We've got plays. It's a good hand. So another one for the good hand pile. Step 5. Perfect guard. Pokuhile. 2 triggers and Delphine. I know I was saying all that about keeping perfect guards, but I would be really tempted to mull 5 here. I mean, I guess I'd hold on to the perfect guard. I don't want to. I would think about it for a long time, and I might make a mistake and get punished in an event and put it back. This time we're not punished because you're a second perfect guard. But then hands like this, you can see, can be a little slow. We have very few action pieces. But this deck doesn't need to play fast and loose, so it's not the end of the world. I would say this hand is fine. We have a cycler. We still have something to do a little early. And we have some shield. We might end up taking a little more damage than we would like. The only thing this hand is missing is like if this was like a crit or something, then we would be really insulated. We could play a nice slow grind game without being exposed to much risk. But Mary Lish is a fine card. We would be able to, grade 2s are quite flexible for offense and defense, so we'd probably be able to leverage that into something. So I would say that's a fine enough hand. This hand is 4 triggers and a cycler. Well, consider putting back 4 triggers. And card triggers are 1 and 3. We would expect to draw 1 more trigger. Well, maybe I didn't shuffle good enough. These sleeves. I was talking to a friend the other day. He's always complaining about, oh man, these old sleeves really stick together. Maybe he's on to something. I don't know. It happens to the best of us. But it's not like this hand is unkeepable, or it's like this is so bad. Oh my gosh. With this cycler, we're going to have extra cards to work with, and we can call Meta Chat, and we can filter out these draws to be better cards. So it's not that bad. It's actually fine. That actually goes in the good hand pile. It's not like the greatest hand I've ever seen, but it is definitely not unplayable. We've got a front, an over trigger, Mew Malilin, Porcuhile, and Mary Lish. I would probably put all these back. And I get stuck in weird scenarios like this, where, kind of like similar to the perfect guards, you have your over trigger. And you might, if you put this back, you might never see your over trigger again. It's a very powerful card, and when you see it, it can have a very impactful outcome on the game. And it can be very impactful on the outcome of the game, per se. And if you put it back, you might never see it again, and you could have thrown away your opportunity to use the over trigger. If you get really greedy, like, I'm going to put it back because it's just so important to check. The fact that it is a perfect card that costs nothing a lot of the time, it's very, very worth considering keeping. I wouldn't necessarily want to keep these other cards. I might consider keeping Mew Malilin if I had other options, or cyclers. But since I don't, and I don't have any cyclers, and I want it, and I desperately want to draw cyclers, I would even be considering putting back this trigger. Because trying to be agnostic of the fact that we've seen so many triggers in the rest of our deck here, it's like, well, we're drawing, again, triggers are 1 and 3, so since we're drawing 4 cards, we are relatively likely to draw a trigger in general, knowing the deck is what it is. I knew that in this particular set, I was less likely to draw a trigger, but you wouldn't normally know that with your redraws, so for the exercise, it's relatively important to be agnostic of that information, and just to practice them in your mind's eye without this information. And this produces a hand that's fine enough. It doesn't have cyclers in it, but we have Persona Ride, and we have a perfect guard for when we're under pressure. The only thing, of course, it's missing is we don't want to use this to block like early Vanguard swings, but we have things to play relatively aggressively early, and we don't have something we don't mind pitching. This hand is fine. It's not impressive, of course, but it's fine. And lastly, we've got 2 Delphines, Ilondrina, a cycler, and a front. Ilondrina is a very powerful 1-of, and if we put it back, we might not find it again. It could be useful for getting pressure off of our Vanguard when we call it and attack it, because I might be like, oh man, I know that card's really important, I'm going to swing at it. I would probably put, if I was going second, I would consider keeping a Guardian, but since we are assuming that we're going first, since our deck usually goes first, well, not usually, but more often than it doesn't, we end up with a very good hand here. We discard a ride 3 times. We have 3 cyclers. So everything. This is a very good hand. And the last 3 cards in our deck were a Persona Ride, a crit, and a cycler. Rezumi. Rezumi is a kind of cycler. So again, a deck that produced, there were some medium hands. There were some ones that were, you could question how good it was, but none of those hands did I think would mean, oh man, I open this and I'm like, well, I'm just cooked. I'm going to get rushed because I have 4 orders and this and that. No, all of our orders have shield, and we have 2 blitz orders, which isn't the end of the world because we can still pitch Twincast to Elementaria in desperate endgames and still get value out of Twincast from our drop zone. So I'm not too worried about our blitz order count. Sometimes I want to make sure that I only have 1 blitz order in my deck so that I can't be in those situations where they're like clogging each other in those endgames where you have 2 blitz orders in your hand. You just need all the shield you could get, but I just can't play them both. 2 is normally fine. Some decks you play 4 blitz orders and you never really have a problem with it. But in decks like that, you wouldn't want to have, like if you have 4 blitz orders, you wouldn't want to also play Elementaria to make one of those perfect cards conflict with it. But since our only other one is Twincast, I feel like Elementaria is fine, and it has that synergy with Sea Rumble Brave Shooter. So I hope that you guys were able to get a little something out of this. even if you don't play the deck, at least you can have in mind a deck to buy somebody you know who you want to get into the game. Cute little sea critters are very appealing to many people. Like, you want your girlfriend to play the game with you, but you don't want to like break the bank. You could buy this deck and something else, because this deck costs about 20 bucks. The most expensive card in here is Larut's Zool at $2. The second most expensive card, I think, is Habitat at slightly less than $2 if you get the triple rare copy. Mythiarq Guardian used to be like 25. I think one went for 40, but it got a reprint recently, so it's down to being like, I think, less than $1. I checked the prices not too long before I started recording. I guess Blessed Favor. I didn't check the price on Blessed Favor. I'm not gonna do that now. I don't think Blessed Favor's too pricey. And again, it's an Overtrigger. There's plenty you can just stick in there just to be an Overtrigger in the deck for less than nothing. Some people have those vanilla Overtriggers just sitting around. So I hope that you can at least enjoy looking at the cute Mythiarchs, that if somebody you know is able to get into the game because of a deck that you can just hand out like this, that you can be confident that the deck they're playing isn't just bulk, even though half of the Mythiarchs are in the bulk bin. It kind of gives you that Heart of the Cards vibes where, no, my deck, my grandpa's deck has no useless cards, but it does have Mythiarq Guardian Delphine. Oh my gosh, Mythiarq Guardian Delphine, I saw somebody kill somebody with that in Premium. Oh no. Well, anyway, I think that's enough from me. We've been at this for over an hour now. I'm going to do my best to keep making videos. I'm going to try and make this a weekly thing. If you have any ideas on decks you'd like to see, I have lots and lots of cards, and I can build most things with the large stockpile of cards our community has access to. So you just let me know. Leave a comment. Like the video and subscribe so that you can see when that video you asked for comes out, because I would be more than happy to make it for you. Alright, everybody. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time. Bye!